When Scorpio season arrives, it feels both like coming home and like going on a deep journey that will change me. Every year, a feeling of mystery descends about who I will be in 6 months when the light has returned, because I know I won't be the same, and my dreams will have shifted, and so will the world. Scorpio season brings us into the season of the psyche and the psychic landscape, filled with rooms, architecture, and archetypes speaking and bringing visions to life. It's a season of metaphor and vision and the changing self. So often the world says that to visit the psyche is to go on a journey to improve ourselves. But I think to go on a journey into the world of psyche is to go to the way of wonder and witnessing without the need to overcome ourselves. This is a season when I feel both the tenderest and the bravest, and I have to find new ways of kindling the light in my psychic landscape. This is a season that illuminates my psychic visions and also the deep vulnerability of living a life. It helps me to feel a boldness in advocating for myself, as well as the tenderness of knowing I need deeper rest in order to do that. I hope that this Scorpio season brings a deep kindling and light to the world and helps each of us move forward. Hello there, my beautiful friends and my fellow space blobs, sparkly blobs, divers into the deep subconscious, seekers, explorers of the spirit. Welcome back to this space. I'm so excited every year to sit down and feel through Scorpio season, even though I will also admit that Scorpio season makes me a little bit nervous every year just because I know I am going to witness and enter into new conversations with myself. I'm going to get to know myself really well. There is a deep, raw honesty to Scorpio's energy. It can be really clarifying, healing, supportive, helpful, help us to understand where we're going next and to really connect with our psyche, with that psychic world that we are so enmeshed with so naturally, and looking underneath the waves and getting to know ourselves. But that can also feel a little intimidating at first. So I hope that as we talk through this very powerful Scorpio season that will be helping us to conclude Pluto and Capricorn, will also be helping us get associated with a longer Mars transit, which I'll get into in a little bit, that we feel really relaxed to enter into this Scorpio season full of love, full of self-understanding, and with some of the tools to get excited about going into the psychic landscape and exploring ourselves and the world and feeling through that. So let's get into our chat today. I'm going to be diving into the themes around the archetype of Scorpio. We'll talk through some of these big transits going on, and I'll end with an intuitive card reading, and I'm so excited to get into this topic today. Every time we're about to enter into a water sign season, I always think, oh, it's time to get back into our countercultural lens and reclaim our visions of time and experience and feeling, because water signs are very countercultural. They are going to push against the established order of things. And Scorpio is an archetype with this 8th house energetic, is all connected to topics that are often considered taboo in polite society. I often say Scorpio brings up the topics that you're not supposed to bring up in a polite conversation or at the dinner table, and asks deep questions about those. Of course, on the surface, that's going to be things like sex, death, and taxes, which are all very classically associated with Scorpio. But I think it goes a little bit further than that, because if we're thinking about Scorpio as the entranceway into the psyche, which is the way I think about it, this is our guiding light as we move through the waters of the psyche, the deep oceanic waters beneath the waves, into the depths. A lot of what we find there about ourselves might have felt disallowed at various points in our lives. Some of the most important, powerful elements of ourselves have been disallowed in various contexts or situations, or at a very systemic level. And so part of what we're doing as we dive into that subconscious world and the unconscious world with the guidance of Scorpio is revealing that and allowing it to show us ways to be more fully here and more fully present, which is why I say Scorpio is one of the most healing signs we can work with. As the fixed water sign, it's also a really foundational energy. And so, what I want us to kind of think about when we're exploring with Scorpio's energy is that this is really about building confidence by going to the places where our power is actually waiting for us. And those are often the places that have been disallowed the most. And that this is a really great season for getting to know these deep places of empowerment that often at first glance seem like places of disempowerment and dismemberment and disengagement, but are in fact these clues. It's like a breadcrumb trail. I also think Scorpio is really fantastic for helping us walk through our old haunted houses, our old haunted landscapes, where we may have felt that we've had to abandon parts of ourselves, parts of our psychic landscape. That will help us incorporate those and allow those to move through. Scorpio is also connected to this idea of death and transformation. It's ruled by Pluto, and it's about feeling more fluid and confident to engage with the psychic landscape as well as the energetic spiritual landscape, and feel that it's not going to overwhelm us or destroy us, but to build a sense of confidence from this very powerful energy field that we all are connected to and are in fact a part of. Like, this is an essential part of who we are. So for me, this is a season's about building confidence in our psychic field, our psychic visions, as well as the places in ourselves where we have felt a lack of confidence or like we have been doing it wrong the whole time, and really feeling the power swell from that really powerful core center of us out into the world. Scorpio is also really connected to this idea of magnetism. It's a very magnetic sign, and a lot of times you'll hear that Scorpios are very magnetic sexual beings. You might have heard that stereotype about Scorpios. And you know, I was in a relationship with a Scorpio for 4 years. It was a very powerful relationship, and he was an extremely magnetic person, I have to say. But I think more than that, that magnetism, it makes me think about water energy when it's activated, empowerment when it's activated, comfort, and a sense of relaxation in going to these deep fields inside of ourselves and pulling up the confidence from that place. And I think that's what's so intriguing and fascinating about Scorpio season. And this Scorpio season in particular is going to be quite an interesting ride, I think. And it is going to take us through a lot of different psychic landscapes, emotional landscapes, and places, like visiting different various places from our past. So let's talk about the big themes and transits that I think are going to be really helpful to kind of explore and play with this Scorpio season. One of the first things I really noticed about this Scorpio season is that it's going to be asking us to explore the many forms of intuition that each of us has within us. I think a lot of times intuition is sold to us as this kind of clear insight. Like, you're just sitting there and you get an image or an idea and you just move with it and you just know. And that is one form of intuition. And I think probably most of us have had times where that absolutely has been the modality through which we've gotten our best information. We're not here to undermine that vision. However, I think sometimes that intuitive lens gets put on a pedestal, and it makes it so that some of the other ways we work with intuition gets put on the back burner, or we might ignore some of it because it doesn't feel legitimate enough. It doesn't feel clear enough. It doesn't feel like it's actually there. So one of the first things that came to mind just feeling through the season is like, ooh, this is a fantastic time to really look around and notice, because intuition can come in many forms. It can come with fatigue, slowing down physically. Those are intuitive ways. I know living up here in the Nordics, where I live right now, it's very physical. There is a slowing down, there is a listening in, and that is just part of it. And when I try to ignore that, I'm cutting myself off from my intuitive knowing. But you might also have fatigue because there's a project that drains your energy, or you might have a slowing down or a roadblock because there's something about it that's needing shifting. Those are all places of intuition. You can also have fog or grief come through. That's also intuition that can help us to understand ourselves, to incorporate something, or to see where we need to direct our course because it's informed by a life experience or an experience of confusion or fog that is helping us to see. Sometimes intuition also will come in these little nudges. They're very, very, very subtle. They won't necessarily feel like clarity. They won't necessarily feel like a full image. I think many of us who work with that really intuitive nudge know that it often comes in these very strange little instructions, very strange little images, like little fractals of this larger picture. And we'll get like one little fractal of it and we'll be like, okay, this is a great season just to explore, just to play with. What happens when I really let myself go all in with the intuitive guidance that is mine, that I work with? And open your mind a little bit and think about the different formats that your intuition might be coming in, whether that's physically, mentally, vision-wise. It might be synchronicities. It might be just noticing the ingredients around you in your space. But this season's really asking us to pay attention to it instead of shutting it away, instead of pretending it's not there, instead of trying to just push through to the next thing. This season is going to time and time again pull us back into intuitive knowing. And I think for many of us, either we've moved through some really big changes this year already. I know so many people in this space, so many of you have said that you've like quit a job, left a living situation, had some kind of huge life change move through. So you might be processing that, or you might be feeling like you're still building up to a really big change. And in either way, there's this kind of acknowledgement of that change coming through. And I think a lot of psychic vision coming through for how to move with it moving forward. And that brings me into a couple of things that are going on this Scorpio season that are informing the feel of this whole season. And it's actually involving the two planets that rule Scorpio, Pluto and Mars. So let's start with our favorite topic, Pluto. I do have a whole Pluto in Capricorn final visitation video that I put out back in September. So you can check that out if you want to deep dive on this season for intuitives and psychics and visionaries. It's a very powerful season for us right now as Pluto finishes up its residency in Capricorn. And this Scorpio season is kind of the final moment of Pluto in Capricorn, because Pluto's shifting to Aquarius for good, for the next 20 years at any rate, on November 19th, just a couple of days before the end of Scorpio season. So Scorpio season for us is really helping us to usher in a completely new energetic timeline. And I know we've been kind of working with this. Pluto's been moving back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius for the last, I don't know, it must be about a year and a half at this point, something like that. Might be a little more than that. And so we've been kind of moving between these worlds, getting associated with each of them. But this Scorpio season is going to be about integrating and releasing. And don't let this intimidate you, because ultimately, as we're shifting into this new gear, we are moving into new forms of freedom of expression, and care for each other and community building. That I think is going to be really beautiful. We'll come back to Pluto and Aquarius soon here once we get close to the end of Scorpio season. But this is a time of deep integration as we're moving through these final days of Pluto and Capricorn. And that can come with a few little side effects, you could say, I guess, or a few experiences. One being that time can collapse. You can be visiting various parts of yourself from the past as well as the future. You can be experiencing integration and understanding of yourself at a deeper level. You can also be having really clear visions of what you need to do next and have a very big longing for change, leaving the establishment, leaving what's been established for you in recent years or seasons of your life. You can feel an urgency for something new. You can feel physically that the energy is changing, so also take care of your body. And I had some questions that I think are really fun too if you're just wanting to allow the Pluto and Capricorn transit, which started back in 2008, to kind of conclude and feel through it. So what rules have changed within you in recent months? I'm kind of thinking about the last year, the last 6 months. Like, what rules have changed within me? What rules do I realize I no longer want to buy into anymore, do anything? Have you been ruling over yourself with an iron fist in any way, dominating yourself, forcing yourself? If so, what are those ways, and is it working? How does it feel? Do you want to carry some of that kind of driving yourself, whipping yourself to move forward? Is that working for you? Because while I don't like to get into this too much because I think there's so many layers, Pluto and Capricorn can bring up themes around kind of strict regimes. And we've seen some of that happening in the world, right? And that also happens on an individual level. So this is a really great time to think about where you've been forcing, pushing, exploring if that's working for you and what you're allowed to let go of. How has your inner parenting changed? How would you like your inner parenting to change? How would you like to treat yourself if you really had a loving parental inner force that's always looking out for you? And how has your vision of what is important in life changed this year? This is also a really great question to ask in closing out Pluto and Capricorn. Oh, and also thinking about what parts of you that used to live in shadow have actually been illuminated and are now living more present with you in the world. Give yourself some credit as well, because while it might seem like you still have more to do in life, if you look over the last few years, I guarantee you that you have illuminated and expressed and freed parts of yourself that you would not have thought possible 10 years ago. So this is also a really great time to reflect on where you've already released powerful empowerment energy from that hidden underground world that Pluto rules. Pluto is all about the underground treasure hidden in the depths. And that's where the themes of empowerment and power come in. So some of the treasures that have been expressed in that time. And then at the very end of Scorpio season, we are shifting gears on this big collective level for a new 20-year cycle with Pluto and Aquarius. So there's a lot to process there, and I think we'll be feeling that collectively and individually. It's good to know that that's what's going on this Scorpio season. The other thing I wanted to bring up for this Scorpio season is the longer Mars cycle that we are currently working with. So Mars will start off its time during Scorpio season in Cancer. We've been going through quite a number of weeks of Mars and Cancer energetics. On November 3rd, so about midway into Scorpio season, Mars is going to move into Leo, and we are heading toward a Mars retrograde that's going to go from December 6th to February 24th. And it's going to be split between the signs of Leo and Cancer. And with Mars entering Leo during the Scorpio season, we're really starting to get into this pre-shadow phase of Mars. And there's this theme that I just want to kind of throw out there that's starting to percolate here during Scorpio season, but we will be working with truly all the way into early May when it comes to Mars working with Leo and Cancer energy. That is about how we think about success, progress, moving forward, pushing forward on things and making things happen. And that is challenging all of that. One of my favorite creatives, Marta Rose, who runs Divergent Design Studios, and I'm taking a course with them right now, has said 2 steps forward and 1 step back is not failure. It's fractal, it's iterative, it's spiral time. And Marta Rose is very invested in talking about different envisionings of time and process, and has come up with this key phrase of spiral time. And I think with working with Mars retrograde, which happens every couple of years, we're really exploring where we think process needs to be linear, needs to be aggressive, needs to be forced, needs to be about high aggression, motivation, and reformulating what that means to each of us. We're going to be sorting through for the next 6 months, starting the Scorpio season, with what really brings us to life. For me, Mars is about the spark of life moving forward and like moving out into life, being expressed, and that flame, that fuel that really we hold within ourselves. And it is not going to look cookie cutter. And this is really a time to think about how we expect ourselves to progress. This mythical there that we're always trying to get to, the top of the mountain, the big promotion, the big acceptance from the entire world, whatever it might be. This Mars retrograde, and we're really going to start feeling this, is going to be all about releasing those linear tracks and stepping more into spiral time, spiral creativity, and re-envisioning the energetic field. The last Mars retrograde, by the way, was in Gemini between October 30th, 2022 and January 12th, 2023. And so it's also, you can think about the last couple of years and how your motivation and vision for life has shifted in the 2 years since we've worked with a transit like this the last time. So this season has a lot of power to it. And we are, of course, going to have some other really interesting transits. We're going to have the full and the new moon coming up, so we will talk through those in another video. But I wanted to make sure to point out the Pluto and Mars things going on, because I think you might be wondering, like, I've lost the motivation. I don't really feel like pursuing X, Y, and Z. And yet also I'm starting to feel very motivated by these random fractals of ideas. And I don't know what to do with that. So just remembering that there's all of this moving right now can be really, really helpful. Let's do our intuitive reading here at the end of our Scorpio season chat. How is everyone feeling as we move into this Scorpio season? I am feeling some of the clearest intuitive guidance I've ever felt. Oh, and a card already wanted to come out. 5 of Pentacles. What a classic. I don't know why, but this just makes me so happy to see, because this is kind of the work of Scorpio. This is it. It really represented in a really beautiful way. So we'll get into that. I feel both really, really clear. Like, I've had some really clear visions of what's next, which has been so exciting, and also very fractal. Like, we'll see how all these new ingredients are going to formulate. I have to just lean into the surrender and rest a lot in between the big energetic visions. So I'd be curious to see how you all are feeling. 6 of Wands. Let's pull one more to go with these, because these are cards that are very much about shifting states, shifting modalities, and points of recognition in that process. Points of recognition as well as shifting states. Ace of Swords, clarity. There you go. Perfect. It just, in my mind, this makes so much sense. Not that it's always about making sense. I don't like that phrase. Does that make sense? Does it always have to be sensible? Does it always have to be in the field of sense? Sometimes that's important. Admittedly, we need some sense in this world. It's gotten a little weird, but also maybe not. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk through this. So I said that the work of Scorpio is really well symbolized here in the 5 of Pentacles. And that's because, first of all, 5s in tarot are so important because they are this kind of meeting point of tension where we recognize that something needs to shift, that we are about to shift. It's this uncomfortable little moment of imbalance where we're looking around. And in the 5 of Pentacles, this ties to themes of unworthiness, of being shut out, of not belonging, of feeling cut off from love on any level, and feeling like there's nobody taking care of us and ourselves. And this can really lead us to some really deep psychic wounds in ourselves and in the way culture and society have treated us. And in fact, I think this card actually is very honest because it reflects something that does happen. You know, we do experience injury and being cast out in various times in our life. I think especially in this community where there's a lot of sensitives and a lot of neurodiversity and a lot of disability and other forms of existing in different bodies and experiences in life, we've experienced this, and it's a very real experience. But also, this card points to where we torture ourselves as well, where we keep saying, I am not worthy of help, I am not worthy of the divine, I feel shut out. And so both of these things can be working at the same time. And part of the journey, I think, of Scorpio is to take care of these wounded selves, these parts of ourselves that feel cast out, taking care of them, witnessing them, seeing them, initiating ourselves into that place, as well as then, and this is the turning point, this is the transition of stages, saying, I'm worth taking care of, I'm worth walking back through the doors into belonging, and I'm allowed to pursue that and move toward that and not just leave myself stuck in the same cycles. So it challenges places where we have felt like, well, I'll never belong, I'll never get the support I need, and asks us, is that really true? And where can we start to advocate for ourselves, just even internally first, to believe that we can have that help, those resources, that vision, that belonging. So, and that really leads us into the Six of Swords, which is about leaving one shore and going to another. I always love this image because it makes me think about the mystic river of life, as well as the mystic river of death and forgetting. I think it ties to both of these, and the death and transformation that occurs when we leave behind a familiar shore because it cannot serve who we've become, and knowing that we need to and must go to the next shore, and the bittersweetness of that and the excitement of that. And this card is really about that transitional stage. And often it does come after we've had a moment that says, no, actually, I need this change. Actually, I am worth belonging. I am worth self-advocacy at this time. And then moving toward what feels really true. So these two cards for me are very honest. They're very much asking for acknowledgement, witnessing, and then starting to follow through with maybe some conversations, even just within ourselves, that acknowledge how things have to change. And that leads us to clarity, the Ace of Swords. I love this card. It's so crystalline. That's the word I would use. There's this crystalline quality. I was talking about intuition earlier in this video and how it's not always just about those really clear visions, but sometimes they come through, and the Ace of Swords, I think, is a fantastic image of that. It's also just the most honest. It's the most just, this is what is true. And sometimes what I like to do when I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by my life is just sit down and notice what I do know. There's a lot of things I don't know. There's a lot of things I have no control over. I have no idea how that's going to work out. But there are certain things I actually do know. I know I need to rest, this afternoon because that's what my body is asking for. I know that I'm really passionate about this topic or this book or this project. I know that I have a vision for a certain thing. It's a great time this season to notice what you do know. Isn't it funny how sometimes we won't let ourselves know what we know? Because we might feel a little intimidated or a little scared, but then once we let ourselves know it, feels really good. That's kind of what the Ace of Swords there is doing, and what all three of those cards are doing is they're like asking us, like, please witness yourself, please see yourself, please let yourself know that you're allowed to move forward, as well as those around you, and as well as, in our lives and our conversations. I find Scorpio season to be so clarifying in my relationships as well. It really brings me to some interesting places. With that being said, if you would like to support me continuing to show up and do this work, I would love to see you over on my Patreon. It really means the world to me. Plus, I'm able to offer up so many extra resources. We do weekly chats every week where we just talk through the sensitivity of the week. I'm currently in the midst of doing the minor arcana. We're working slowly through all the minor arcana cards and talking about how they represent different innate rhythms that each of us carries within ourselves and how they look, and reformulating our relationship to tarot. And of course, we do rituals and practices for the new and full moons and so much more. So I'd really love to see you over in that space. It really helps me out, but also it allows me to help you out. And of course, I love being here. I love being in this space. So if you subscribe or you like, or you let me know what's your relationship to Scorpio, all of those interactions make such a huge difference. I have been so enjoying reading through the comments. They just really lift my spirit, reading through what everybody's moving through, knowing that we're doing this together. So I'd really love to hear from you. I hope to see you back here. We have so much more to explore, including this shift with Pluto moving into Aquarius. I'm going to sit down. We're going to talk through that, as well as some really big moons coming up. And we are going to definitely do a deep dive on Mars retrograde coming up. So you're going to want to stick around because we have so much more to cover. Take care of yourselves as we enter into Scorpio season. It is a tender, thinning of the veil time with a lot of connective threads, speaking, talking, and vibrating. And that means we need to take extra good care of ourselves and move at our own pace. And I am right there with you. I will see you back here very, very soon.